Never will I ever forget them. Because it would be the greatest act of betrayal. Every night when I close my eyes, I see them smiling, joking, and laughing. Like they always did. With confidence and love, I can say they were the happiest people I have ever known. And somehow, after they were taken from me, a piece of myself and this happiness was ripped from me without any chance to gain it back. Darren, Corey, John, Terrence, Enzo, gone too soon. They were the best friends in the tenderness of my teenage years. At first, there were only 5 of us living in the small town of Carplight and hanging out on its streets every day. Darren being my closest friend. We were introduced to each other at the age of 7 by our respected mothers, immediately highlighting the odd resemblance in our names, since mine is Alan. From that moment, a great and genuine friendship between Darren and I began and blossomed over time. 2 months before the incident, a new family settled in the city, and Kari joined our small group. Yeah, a bunch of buddies that I have always seen as a blessing, sent to further brighten my life and complete the picture perfect of my teenage life. A tight-knit group that I'd believed to be indestructible. But I did not know. I did not know that on July 16th, 2005, the worst was finally going to happen. Under a starry sky, that night, when it was already getting very late, we strolled through the bright, deserted streets, making a lot of noise like any carefree teenagers would, before we sat on the stairs of a small, unfinished house near the industrial area. We were in an empty new neighborhood that was due to be populated very soon, and lots of buildings were still under construction. Kari and I were taking a selfie as we felt the vibrations of Terrence's big boombox pass through our feet. He was doing funny dance moves a few feet away from John, and Zoe and Darren engaged in a fun and passionate conversation. Cigarettes and joints lit. We were smoking and conversing to spend a little more time outdoors and together. Suddenly, Terrence stopped and went to check out his boombox, as if something was wrong with the radio. Looking at it from several angles, the music had obviously stopped. To remedy this, he first removed and then reinserted the compact disc into the device, to no avail. Then, he tinkered a bit by pressing several buttons, and finally went as far as to remove a few batteries from the device, before jumping back in fear when he noticed that his boombox was still functioning. Something had replaced the music. Something terrifying. I remember we all froze in front of the strange phenomena. Terrence then looked at us by damn one, his hands raised in questioning, as if to ask us what was happening. After several seconds of listening, John approached the radio with the firm intention of turning it off. I could see the look of exasperation on his face as he kicked the device to no avail. I don't know if fear is contagious or not, but when I saw it in Zoe's eyes, I got the distinct impression that we shouldn't be present at this time and place. To hell is this thing? It's messed up. You should get it fixed, John said to Terrence, continuing to knock on the device. Messed up? Not even in a dream. The problem might be interferences or something. You talk about satanic gibberish, and it's probably some kind of stupid joke. It's obvious. Terrence then answered him with a smile, true to himself, trying to ease the atmosphere. Following his remarks about the event, I saw his smile disappear as quickly as it appeared, when a deafening noise suddenly escaped from the boombox. We all took a few steps back, staring at the device, eyes filled with terror. John, who was closest to it, covered his ears while wrenching in pain. We could all feel the vibrations under our feet, as the noise escaping from the device was loud. At this point, I'm more than sure we were all ready to run away and leave the radio there, at that place. But no sooner had I nurtured the idea that the noise finally stopped. I can't remember who broke the silence, as we were all so shocked by what we had just experienced. But in any case, Zoe was so scared, she wanted us all to go home. No one opposed this idea. In addition, we were sure that the noise had alerted the night watchman, who had to watch the surroundings. Along the way, we all avoided talking about it. Not because we were still terrified. No, but more for the sake of maintaining our sanity. True to himself, Terrence started joking, and in no time, this bizarre event and all the unease, well, it was behind us. We were back. We were back to being normal, loud-ass teenagers, talking shit and everything and nothing. However, less than 10 minutes later, everyone else stopped walking and simultaneously pulled their phones out of their pockets. The screens of their smartphones were red and flickering. When I felt the vibrations of my phone in my pocket, I pulled out my device also, and found myself facing the exact same event. I still remember Kari's look of terror as she put her hand over her mouth, shaking and staring at her phone screen. Damn, that's him. He's the same guy as earlier on the radio, Darren then said. How the hell did he do that? How does he know our names? Without a word, Zoe raised a shaking hand and pointed to something, or someone, right in front of us. When they saw him, they all started to back away slowly, their eyes riveted on the path, as if they feared a threat sauntering in our direction. All but me, because whatever they saw, I was the only one who didn't see it. I then began to look at the path in front of me, and my friends behind me several times. Completely overwhelmed by what was going on. Then at one point I stared at Darren, questioning him with my gaze. And as he understood it, "Can you not see that thing over there? Dude, move," he said in complete panic. Is he a man? What the fuck is this? Zoe said, on the verge of tears. Puzzled, I looked down the path again, without seeing anything suspicious or dangerous. I turned to my friends once more, and this time, as they continued to back away and yell at me to move, they were frantically pointing at someone or something in front of us, who apparently kept approaching, looking at the path again. I, once again, didn't see what they all feared, and it was starting to really piss me off. And to be honest, Darren had played a lot of pranks on me before. Now I think about that moment. And I really wish it was all yet a prank from him. But sadly, that wasn't the case. And nothing could have prepared me and all of my friends for the real horror that was about to unfold. Blind to the threat my friends dreaded, and persuaded that they were all playing a prank on me, I turned angrily, ready to let them know that I didn't find it funny at all. But instead of just seeing my friends continuing to back away, I saw Darren, Kari, Terrence, and Zoe running towards where we had come from as an invisible force lifted and held John in the air by his neck. With both hands, he desperately tried to grab a hold of what was squeezing his neck in vain, before he got mercilessly slashed, as if caused by a very sharp blade. Gashes just appeared on his torso, tearing his shirt and cutting deep into his flesh. With an outstretched arm in my direction, I saw him trying to cry out for my help. Looking at me with eyes filled with a mix of pain and terror. Since he was only a few feet away from me, each hit he received made blood squirt. And each time, I felt a few drops settle on my face. Frozen. Absolutely frozen. For a few seconds. In front of the horrible spectacle, I then started running in the opposite direction. Every time I think about it, I feel like the biggest fucking coward. Because I just ran away when he was clearly needing and asking for my help. I wish I could have died in John's place. But panic and fear filled me from the nightmare I witnessed. I just started running unconsciously, just to put a considerable distance between me and this entity that was invisible to me. I hid in a dimly lit alley between a tractor and a pile of bricks, catching my breath before thinking about how I was going to get the hell out of there. My parents, the police, I thought, before I quickly looked at my phone, which was still in my hand the whole time, without me even realizing it, losing my mind to terror. Seemed like the only thing left to do. When I saw my phone's all red screen flicker with no way to contact anyone, tears of pure despair then escaped my eyes, streaming very gently down my face. The only option I had was to get out of that area, and hopefully I might find the others. Or maybe I was going to run into one of the night watchmen, and he and his colleagues were going to rescue us all. However, I was paralyzed with fear, unable to bring myself to come out of my hiding place, and praying that this thing that was invisible would not find me. Crouched with my head in my hands and my eyes closed, I was shaking uncontrollably, trying to breathe less heavily as I rocked back and forth for at least half an hour. All of a sudden, I then felt hands grip me, and without even asking myself any question, I began to struggle, and I even thought of grabbing one of the bricks from the pile right next to me to defend myself. Fortunately, I quickly realized that it was Zoe. She was shaking and completely covered in blood. Oh my God, they're all dead. They're all dead. Alan, they're all dead. She kept repeating, sobbing. A great void then invaded me following these words. With my eyes on the ground, I was starting to accept the idea that we were certainly next on the list of that bloodthirsty bastard. Psychologically defeated and totally broken, I was not even able to confront Zoe, still caught in her hysteria. So, as if to show her that we only had the two of us in our last moments, I hugged her. Against all odds, it calmed her down, at least a little, for a short time. A few seconds later, Zoe suddenly stood up, her eyes riveted on the end of the driveway behind me, pointing something in that direction, all shaking and stepping back. I looked in the direction she was pointing without seeing anything threatening. It was starting again. The thing had found us. When I looked at Zoe, she screamed, pulled her phone out of her pocket, and looked at it, with more fear in her eyes before dropping it to the floor. Her phone screen was all red and flickering. She covered her ears and started stomping on it as hard as she could. She then gradually looked up, way above me, and I remember thinking, with my wild imagination, that the thread had taken off or had grown incredibly large. I tried in vain to see even a shadow, a bit of what terrified her, without the slightest success. Just as I looked at Zoe again, she turned and started running in the opposite direction, but quickly stopped because she had seen something else on the other end of the driveway that I still couldn't see. She then began to look at the two ends and turn, and repeatedly, like someone cornered by two attackers with no possibility of escape. Her expressions, her actions, absolutely terrified me. I couldn't see the trap closing in on us. Zoe climbed onto the tractor in a desperate attempt to get away from the danger. all while crying and begging. Oh my God, no, she cried. She cried out over and over, tears streaming down her face as she covered her ears. She then suddenly froze, as if paralyzed by something, and looked at me before quietly letting her very last word escape from her mouth. Run. The sight of her being lifted up right afterward paralyzed me completely, and I felt my blood freeze in my veins. Before my eyes, she first got slashed 5 times deeply on her torso in a strange way, as if her assailant was drawing some kind of symbol while slaughtering her. Then she got stabbed once in the middle of her chest. At that moment, I saw her vomit countless insects. I didn't see clearly what they were. Cockroaches, maybe. But I saw them come out of her mouth before what was attacking her released its grip and left her collapsed onto the roof of the tractor. I had nightmares for years about it. Zoe's eyes turned completely white, plunged into mine when her body fell on the tractor, while the insects still came out of her half-open mouth. I started running again, and again, and again without stopping, and without really knowing where the hell I was going. During my escape, I came across the body of one of the night watchmen. He had similar wounds on his torso, and also there were several insects all around his corpse, as well as his phone a few feet away from him. It's all red screen, flickering, covered in sweat. My legs getting heavier with each stride. I ran until I finally reached the road. Everything around me seemed to have frozen in time, realizing that I was the only one alive at that moment. But maybe not for long. Although I was finally out of the future new neighborhood, but still, I was convinced that this thing, well, if there's only one, was surely going to chase me to the ends of this earth if it had to. And to be honest, once again, I didn't have the strength to flee any further. So, I began to walk, very slowly, in the middle of the road, with my eyes riveted straight ahead. expecting to finally see this assailant or to be suddenly slaughtered without even noticing the damn threat. There was not a cat outside, as usual. In the late hours of the night, in this small town where nothing normally happens, I was sure I was going to die in no time. So I found it really pointless to try finding help. However, help came to me, appearing behind me in the form of the headlights of a car that seemed to arrive at full speed. Still in a daze, I continued to walk without even giving a damn, until I felt a strong grip on my left arm. Hey, didn't you hear me? Can you hear me? Are you okay? Asked the policeman before he looked even more dismayed. You're just a kid. What happened to you? He added, before bombarding me with many more questions. I gently put my hands over my ears before shaking my head to let him know I was deaf. I then calmly put 2 fingers over my eyes before placing them on my lips to let him know that I could read lips. I don't know if he really understood, but all he could say afterwards was, "Okay, you'll come with me, okay? I'll take you to safety. Come with me." There's no need to explain in detail what followed. The medical care, the hours upon hours of questioning with the police and other units, the fruitless investigations, the media interests, and all the rest. I later learned from very discreet and hidden sources that identical murderers called witchcraft murders had been committed for decades and were still unsolved until now that I am writing this. They're consistently covered every time they happen to avoid panic. But I think everyone needs to know. And even though the public, in their ignorance, thinks I was just a crazy and traumatized teenager with too much damn imagination that even probably smoked excessively that night, I know what I saw, and it was real, like you, like me. It wasn't the work of a mad killer, because mad killers are not invisible. After thinking about it for a long time, I finally realized why I am the only one who survived. All these victims of witchcraft murderers were massacred because they heard it through their radios, phones, or other devices. This is also why my friends, for example, could see their executioner, I could not see anything. Because I had not heard it. I hadn't heard the voice of evil. My deafness had actually saved my life. The things victims hear and then see before their deaths still titillate my curiosity. But of course, I don't wish to experience them, going so far as to avoid using hearing aids, even though that happened 15 years ago. The voice of evil randomly chooses its victims and strikes at any time of any day. And what's even more terrifying is that it doesn't discriminate in terms of age, from what I've learned. So, if one day you hear something strange that makes your blood run cold, and then find yourself in a danger you cannot explain, take my friend Zoe's advice. Run. And don't stop until you find help.